The Texans have a tough task on their hands to open up week one against the LA Rams. The regular season is here, and I'm going to tell you how Houston has a fighting chance.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Battle Red Nation, from H-Town to your town. Today's episode and every episode of the Locked On Texans podcast is for Texan fans all around H-Town to Cali, just like right before. That's what the Houston Texans will be doing this Sunday. They take on the Rams. First-time listener, thank you for stopping by, listening to this show. My everyday is from the Himalayas. Thank you for coming back to make the Locked On Texans your first listen of the day, your team every day. Today's episode, I'll be diving into who is the actual X factor for Houston. You're going to want to stick around for that. The offensive advantages that the Houston Texans have to give them a fighting chance and putting their best foot forward. What is that? Well, let's be smart about it. It's the Texans defense. That's their best foot, and that's going to be the foot they need to put forward. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Just like there's more to every player, more dedication, more attention to detail, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Stay tuned later in the episode for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Now, we got to be real here on today's show. They're going to have a tough task. I understand it. But Houston's biggest advantage coming into this game Sunday, the 3:30 game, let's not get cute. Let's not try to find ways to be clever, overly clever. We ain't got to do all that. Houston's biggest advantage is its defense and the early season struggles the Rams offense might face. The Texans are a 2.5-point underdog over on FanDuel. And as much talk there is about, regarding Houston's offense, and rightfully so, I think we've overlooked one question for the Rams. What the heck is going on with Matthew Stafford? He's been back in practice. ESPN NFL insider Dan Graziano reported this week that Stafford's injury could be a lingering issue for the 37-year-old quarterback in the Rams all year. Continue with it is something that will need to be monitored and managed throughout the season. So that's a red flag there for the Rams, a green flag there for the Houston Texans. So we have to monitor that. But Houston's defense comes into this season 3 years under Ryans and Burke. The chess match between those two and McVay will be crucial. And it'll come down to this: McVay's ability to create space versus the Texans' ability to take away that leverage. That said, keep in mind the matchup that plays a factor into why the Texans' defense has the advantage. What the Texans' defensive line does better than almost every other defensive line in the league, and that is force quarterbacks who have to move around and about in the pocket. Those pressures, ladies and gentlemen, it may not always lead to a sack, but because of the back end of the defense, a lot of times it has led to a turnover or a gain of no yards. Case in point, the Texans against premier teams in 2024. When I look at games against the Bills, Lions, Packers, Chiefs twice, and the Chargers playoff game in Miami, who has a ton of speed, the Texans held those teams to a combined 20.1 points in those games. But in those games, the Texans defensive front and defense altogether created 135 pressures, 14 sacks, but the number that everyone should love to see, 16 turnovers. 16 turnovers! That's what the Texans do. Plus, one of the best third down defenses in the NFL. Houston didn't lose anybody on their defense. Christian Harris is back in the fold. All camp we've talked about and seen the growth from Caleb Bullock and how well those linebackers have improved with coverage. Plus, depth reinforcements will aid Houston's ability to create more chaos for opposing offenses. Houston is facing an aging offense. Plays a major role into why this defense can be successful Sunday against the Rams. They're facing an aging offense. Youth is on their side. Oh, and by the way, this is probably the perfect game to have Derek Stingley Jr. travel with Devontae Adams. Last matchup, 1 catch, 5 yards. We know DeMeco Ryans doesn't typically, have those travel assignments for regular season games. This should be the game to do it to kick off the year. I would not be shocked if Houston sends the defense out first if they win the coin toss to kick off the year to assert their dominance. And listen, I mentioned the pressures. I mentioned how those pressures can turn into sacks. Those pressures can turn into turnovers. Those pressures can turn into turnover-worthy plays. They are going up against one of the greatest quarterbacks in our era and generation, but he's also 37 years old. He's also dealing with some back issues. And you don't have to be an athlete. You can be a regular day job person. You get back issues, that's going to impact how you operate for the day. That ain't got nothing to do with Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter coming at you. So they have to deal with Matthew Stafford, but Stafford's lack of mobility, and look at last year, how he operated under pressure. He had a 33.3 PFF passing grade under pressure. Also, according to PFF, Stafford recorded 14 turnover-worthy plays under pressure, tying for the most in the NFL in 2024. Again, a 33.3 passing grade under pressure that indicated the challenges in maintaining performance when facing defensive pressure. This is what the Houston Texans were able to do against the likes of MVP Josh Allen. This is what they were able to do against Jared Goff, who many considered the MVP favorite until he ran up against the Houston Texans. This is what the Houston Texans were able to do at several points throughout the year, creating pressure to cause quarterbacks to get uncomfortable, off their mark, and down the field, they're taking the ball over, or those edge defenders are just getting after the quarterback, right? So that's why I look at the Houston Texans and I say to myself, you talk about having a fighting chance. You talk about having the ability to put your best foot forward, and that best foot forward looks like having, if I look at my toes, I got Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, Derek Stingley, Azeez Al-Shire, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's on one foot. And if I get to my second foot, I got Kamari Lassiter, Christian Harris. I got Kalen Bullock. I got Tim Settle. I got Henry T. The Texans defense is their best foot forward. They got two good foots they can lean on and walk into SoCal Stadium and walk away with a dub. Now, the Texans will face their challenges on the offensive side of the ball. How can Houston's offense not repeat leaving its defense hanging in 2025? Man, we don't want to see that no more. We got more Locked On Texans talk on the way. Don't go nowhere. Texans, it's y'all week. All right, Texan fans, awesome time to look at what it means to move the game forward. And this is Mazda's Move the Game Forward moment, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing a game, it's about redefining it. Because those moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go the extra yard, shift into the extra gear, and keep moving the game forward. So this is the part of the conversation where I want to talk about a player that I believe redefines the game, that, that defines their game. And for me, guys, honestly, it's Will Anderson Jr. He is a player that the Houston Texans have that I really believe will end this year in between those top 3, top 5 Defensive Player of the Year finalist conversations. He's a guy that I think will continue to transcend his own game and will continue to be a part of the foot that the Texans put forward, their best foot, to create that pressure, to get after the quarterback. And also his impact leads to the other players around him just being as best as they can as well, because he is commanding so much for the offense to stop. Everybody else is able to eat. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward. Always chasing the next moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is going to be there, and the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be forward. And also, Texas fans, as we look at what the Mazda has done for the vehicle game, and Texas fans, this is the perfect opportunity to let you guys know about Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. Need parts for a project real soon? Supply House has next day's delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tool and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trade Master program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That is supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service at supplyhouse.com. Welcome back, Texan fans. We continue the conversation of how the Houston Texans has some advantages going into Sunday's matchup against the LA Rams. Rams finished last year 10-7. Texans finished last year 10-7. Both had a good run and got into the playoffs and was able to get busy like how they got busy. Houston ran into the Chiefs where they were unable to beat them again, and at some point something got to give. Now the Texans must put pressure on the Rams' second and third levels of the defense. This is how they win the game offensively. The Rams run a ton of zone, mainly cover 3 and cover 1 under Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. Against cover 3, Stroud had an EPA of 23.88 in 2023, one of the best in the NFL. So let's see if he'll be able to get back to that version of himself, where throughout that year, some people considered him an MVP candidate. But the Rams have young linebackers. They have a secondary that is far from their strength, closer to their weakness, not to mention a hole left behind when Christian Roseboom, left in free agency. And Nick Caley knows this. Like, I can't wait to talk about this too, but Nick Caley knows this. The Rams defense has struggled with coverage in the middle of the field, an area that opposing offenses have been able to exploit. Their flaw could be problematic against Christian Kirk getting busy. And for Kirk, it's not about how he starts the season. It's about how he finishes the season. So we're looking at week 1 matchup against the Rams. Week 1, starting the season. Christian Kirk has been available to start the season the last few years. And this is an area where he could cause the Rams a lot of issues. And also just a really revitalized version of Dalton Schultz, he could also get busy. Now, this is what you guys are going to want to hear. You're going to love to hear this. The Rams allow a ton of those yak yards. We did in 2024. So we like yak, right? Everybody take a shot of your yak. That's what the Rams have been pretty much, for the most part, in 2024, extremely bad. One of the worst yak yard teams in the NFL defensively. So that's a problem for them. The Rams were not great against the run in 2024. They finished 24th in yards per attempt, allowing running backs 4.5 yards, and 29th in negative runs forced against running backs at 13.6%. This is a perfect combination for the Texans to exploit and to see if they'll get, the version of this running back group, if they're fare well without Joe Mixon to open the season, and a good opening game potentially to ease Nick Chubb back into the action. Nick Chubb only had 5 carries in the preseason, and in those 5 carries, he averaged 5 yards per carry. He looked good. However, he was going up against the Carolina Panthers defense, who a lot of people consider them by numbers, by eye test, by everything, the worst defense in the NFL in 2024. And they didn't look to have a revitalized defense, at least in preseason, which is where we saw Nick Chubb get his legs back under him, get his wind back under him, and run the ball extremely well. CJ should not have to be Superman for the Houston Texans to win this game offensively. Now, if he does go out there, and if that 7 on his chest turns to an S on his chest, like, that's great. And I think that will give a lot of people cause to cheer. And if he does, then nobody's going to be mad at it. The conversation should be about the advantages that Houston has that's fair to their quarterback, who's taking on a lot. He's learning the offense, but now not only has he learned the offense, but he's also in more control of the offense. So he should not have to be Superman, but the offense is going to need him to win in space and get playmakers the ball so they can get an opportunity to get active upfield. That being said, my concern for this game, for one, will the confidence that has been built throughout preseason and camp for the offensive line hold up, especially the IOL. Aaron Ingram, Lincoln Tomlinson, and Jake Andrews. Like, how will those three fare against the likes of Fisk, who I really like, the defensive line altogether? And I know Tay will be out there lining up against Young and Verse, but the Rams have Brisk and Poona Ford to man the inside gaps. And that is a tough task for three guys, one of which only had one regular season career start in Jake Andrews in New England. The other two guys have years of experience in the NFL, but those years of experience in the NFL has not turned them into a household name, a Pro Bowler, or an All-Pro. They've been pretty much serviceable to this point, and Brisk is a guy that you really have to be good with because he can disrupt the game. So this is a tall task. Additionally, I would – how long will it take for the Texans offense to find their footing? But this is a thin secondary that likes cover three and have been inconsistent to stop the plays deep part of the middle of the field. You know what that means? Y'all know what that means. 12 out here. I expect a healthy Nico, to have a big imprint on this game and to open up opportunities for others underneath. The hollow game for the Houston Texans passing offense should be on full display. And again, I'm looking at Dalton Schultz and Christian Kirk. I think it'll be kind of unfair to put some of these high expectations on a Jaden Higgins or a Jalen Noah. And I think that those opportunities will absolutely come. But as of right now, how we ended off preseason and training camp, it looks like Xavier Hutchinson is the third man now. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, who is the X factor for the Texans going up against the Rams? I'll tell you this. It is not a player. More on today's show to close out the Locked On Texans podcast. Texan fans, have you gotten involved in fantasy yet? If not, what are you waiting on? This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner. Thursday Night Football is a couple of days away, and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now is the time. It's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league. Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. You want to play instantly with friends? Try the new Draft with Friends mode. Or if you prefer the classics, get your crew together and go head-to-head in the private league. No crew? No problem. Join a public league today. The easiest way to play. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And as I mentioned, the Texans right now are a 2.5 point underdog against the LA Rams. The Rams are at home. That's according to who? FanDuel. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with every can't-miss offer. They got something over there at FanDuel, guys. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Fans tell me all the time, man, I love FanDuel. It fits however I like to bet. I like to do player props. Cool, FanDuel got you covered. I like to build same game parlays. FanDuel has you covered. Sometimes I like to sit back and watch how the chaos unfold and then hop in as the live action is going on. FanDuel has you covered. Everything that you want, FanDuel has it over there. It makes the game even more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, it's the best way to add a little bit more excitement and energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? If so, Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com. Visit today. Visit now. Texan fans, we are going to continue our conversation on how the Houston Texans has the advantage. Because they got some advantages in this game. A lot of people, especially nationally, are picking the LA Rams to win this game. Before we dive into the rest of that conversation, thank you for making Locked On Texans your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL season previews on Locked On NFL. Every division winner, breakout stars, and Super Bowl contenders, an 8-episode series with everything you need to know about the NFL season. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As we close out today's episode, it's important to look at who is the X factor for the Houston Texans. And when we say things like X factor, we always like to look at players. We look at players a lot. But it's important to acknowledge the coaches. Did you guys know DeMeco Ryans is 3-5 versus Super Bowl winning coaches? Of those 5 losses, 4 came from 2 coaches, Andy Reid, John Harbaugh. But is DeMeco Ryans the X factor? No, he's not. Not in this game. DeMeco Ryans is not an X factor. X factor are somewhat players or a coach or some element of the game that isn't on Front Street. An X factor is he kind of came out of nowhere, or he had little to no expectations. In this case, this guy I'm going to mention has high expectations, but maybe because he's a first-time play caller. But the X factor for this game is absolutely, for me, Nick Caley. For 2 reasons. For one, hey, DeMeco, McVay likes to do this. Hey, DeMeco, this is his tendency in this situation. I know him. He's going to try to get out on the edge right here. So have a linebacker or have Jalen Petrie stay at home because he's going to try to get out on the edge right here. That's the X factor. So that's one way I feel like Nick Caley is going to have an imprint on this game, simply because he understands the tendencies of the offensive play caller and also the tendencies of Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator. But for 2, like I just mentioned, he knows the tendencies of the defensive coordinator and also the defensive players. He knows who to run at on defense. I think I mentioned that the Rams' defense were not great against the run. They averaged 4.5 yards per attempt allowed. He knows which player is undisciplined or have those tendencies to be undisciplined to bootleg play action towards. He knows that he's going to get out of his gap integrity here. He's not going to play the passing game here. He understands that. He knows that. He knows which DB is likely to give up leverage, and he'll be able to manipulate the defense because of it. Because he's been in the building for years over there with the LA Rams. This is a game. Those guys are friends. They're friends. They've coached with each other. And he came up under Sean McVay as well as Bill Belichick and Josh McDaniels. So it's not about friendship. This is a game where he needs to come out and be on top. He is a first-time play caller, and he's also calling plays for a quarterback that a lot of us think highly of, for a team that is operating in a championship window. We're going to give him 2 to 3 years as they operate in this championship window. Every win matters. Small or large, wins matter. And for Nick Caley, when he was hired, there was a lot of people, myself included, that loved the background, reserved about or indifferent about him being a first-time play caller for this team. For this team, we would have been more comfortable with Nick Caley being a play caller if this was 2023, 2025. This is year 3. And the expectations are as high as ever. So for Caley, he has to use what he's got to get what he wants. And what he has, the knowledge of tendencies and the knowledge of prior working experience. I know what Chris Shula is going to do here. I absolutely understand this look and coverage. And on the flip side, what can I relay to DeMeco Ryans when we watch film, when we're in the coaching studying room, when we're in the study room in the war room with the players, when we're going over film? What can I relate to my coaching staff and my players about the tendencies of Sean McVay and Chris Shula? That is going to help the Houston Texans get over the hump. It's a storyline that I haven't heard many people talk about, but it is a relevant storyline. It's a storyline that needs to be talked about a lot. This is a team that needs to start the year off with a bang. I mentioned DeMeco Ryans 3-5 against Super Bowl winning coaches. Sean McVay is a Super Bowl winning coach. He hadn't played him yet. And if we compare and contrast seasons, 2024, there were games where the Texans, how they lost, kind of made it easy for us to believe that they're not going to make a Super Bowl run. Detroit, Green Bay, and neither of those teams made it to the Super Bowl, right? But what I'm getting at is perception matters. The first hit at their perception, Green Bay. The second and probably the deadliest hit to their perception, Detroit. And I'm also going to throw New York in there. So for 2025, what are the games that can help Houston's perception down the road? Not only from a national talking point, but also from an internal. We just beat this team. We just beat this team. We beat this team. Look at our resume and how it started to stack up. The first 2 weeks of the season, they got the LA Rams, and they're going up against Sean McVay. Even though Matthew Stafford is 37 years old, the game plan for Stafford should be make him move around in the pocket as much as possible, because Stafford will stay in and take a hit. And if you do hit him, he's 37 years old. You guys use your imagination to see what I'm getting at with that. When you have an Aziz, and I'm not asking for nothing dirty, but when you have Aziz, when you have Harris, when you have Speed, that's a linebacker. You got Petrie, that's at nickel. And then you got those guys on the outside at the edge, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter. Get after him, make him hit the ground, legally, of course, but when it's 2nd and 9, 2nd and 8, 2nd and 7, or maybe 3rd and long, force him around the pocket a little bit, because that ability to be mobile isn't there anymore. Force those turnover-worthy plays, create a turnover, give your team good field position. Nick Caley, you get to call plays for CJ Stroud and that side of the ball, and know that, okay, I know Chris Shula tendencies here. This is how we're going to attack them, and eventually this is how we're going to win. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. I hope you've enjoyed your Labor Day. Took a day off, got you some rest, because we're getting back to it. The Texans play football this week, y'all. If you're excited for that, drop the fire emojis in the comment section. Follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. Also, subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. Until next time, ladies and gents, Texan fans across the nation, we got football back this Sunday afternoon. College football just kind of let some of us down. The Texans are going to lift us back up. Peace.